Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy you all could join us. We are here today with the Life Quest. We're so happy to have you all. We have Jessica Schneider and Samantha Hoskins here to present to us, and they also invited two families, the Frank family um, and Hamilton. Am I saying that correctly?
Mhm.
Taylor? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So they are here to share with us. Remember, only the hosts are the focal point, so I don't have to remind you about backgrounds. But if you do unmute yourself to ask questions, please be mindful that we can hear any background noise. And I will turn it over to our guest from LifeQuest to get started.
Right. Well, thank you so much for having us. I'm Samantha Hoskins, and I'm a donor family services coordinator at LifeQuest, which is the local OPO here in this region of Florida. And I just want to introduce our special guests. So we have Paul and Rebecca DeFrank, and they are the parents of donor Alex DeFrank. And then we have Taylor Hamilton, and she is the daughter of donor Keith Hamilton. So, welcome, you guys, and we're so happy that you joined us and are willing to share your stories and your experiences with everyone here today.
Thank you for
Oh, thank
having
you.
us.
Absolutely. So, I think what we're going to start with the DeFranks. If Lakaya, are you able to put up the photo of
Absolutely.
Alex?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to share a photo of Alex, and if you guys could tell us a little bit about Alex and what made him so special.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is one of our favorite family pictures. Alex was 22 years old when he passed away and from an accident at work. And he loved the outdoors. He loved fishing. He loved being with friends. Um, just an all-round outdoor person. He was very kind and loving. That's, I think, the best way I can describe him.
Yeah, and this picture just sort of sums up the way the synchronicity of the family. I am an Alabama grad, but I'm the only one. I never pushed it on anyone, but it was picked up. We say through osmosis. Uh, he really did enjoy the outdoors. He enjoyed Alabama football, uh, and we loved him.
Thank you so much for telling us a little more about Alex. And then, Lakaya, do you have the picture of Keith? And Taylor, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about your dad.
Well, my dad loved to help people. He was a business owner, and one of the main things he really liked to do was hire people that not everybody gave a chance necessarily. So he always gave everybody chances. He was just a very kind man. And yeah, that smile apparently lit up any room that he walked into.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So we are going to talk a little bit about what receiving letters from recipients means to our donor families. So, Paul and Rebecca, do you want to speak a little bit about that? What it's meant to you to receive correspondence?
Sure. Well, and I guess to begin with, I would say writing the letters was very therapeutic for us to be able to introduce our son to the recipients. we didn't know if we'd ever get a response from the recipient, but it was such a blessing to receive the letters from the recipients. Alex donated 5 organs to 4 individuals. And in that, every one of those letters are precious to us in their own way. The gratitude, you can just feel the gratitude that each one has for the gift of life that was given to them. And it really touched our hearts. I have a couple here that I'm going to share here in a few minutes, but it is invaluable to us to have them.
And as I said before, Alex died from a very senseless accident, and receiving the letters and understanding, hearing a little bit about how the recipient's life has been impacted by the organs that he donated, helped take some of that senselessness away. It helped us to see positive things that had come from our loss. It didn't make our loss any less, but it helped us through our loss to see the positive things that had come from such a senseless accident.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's that's really special, and I'm glad that that's been helpful to you guys. And Taylor, do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience with receiving correspondence and just what that's meant to you?
Yeah, no. So it being therapeutical is one of the main things. It was very nice to just speak to somebody who is just so grateful to be alive, for one, because we went through this terrible loss. But like they said, having 5 is amazing. That's awesome. I just want to say that. Saving 5 people, wow. But yeah, just even one, like my dad, having the ability to just save one life has brought a new meaning to the loss in a way, even though it is, like you said, doesn't lessen the loss. But being able to speak to them has been very therapeutic, and learning about the things that they had to go through in life, kind of, since I'm so young, it shows me a different, viewpoint in life, and I can kind of just figure things out in a different way now than I did before.
Thank you, Taylor. And then the next thing we were going to do is they have both brought with them some of the correspondence they've received, and they wanted to share a little bit. So Paul and Rebecca, do you want to share some of your favorite parts of the letters?
Yes, I've got 2. Let me just start with one, and I think it's important for all of the recipients to realize that they have a journey that got them to the point to where they needed to have a donation. That particular struggle is important. Share as little or as much as you're willing to. But from the donation side, it's good for us to know what got you to this point and how are you afterward. Now, this one particular letter here for me was extremely important. I didn't want to have anything to do with organ donation. This, along with my son's generosity, changed my whole opinion. So I'll read it. I'll read some points here for you. The day I received the call that there was a kidney and pancreas available, my husband, Nick, and I were in separate parts of our house, both trying to figure out how to tell the other the same thing. I was very sick, and it was time, despite COVID-19, to go to the hospital. I'd been very sick for over a week. My diabetes was no longer able to be controlled by the insulin I was taking. I was spending both my days and nights vomiting. I was in a very precarious situation. I got the call around 8:30 in the morning. I just sat down to try to eat something when my phone rang. It was hard to believe at first. I spent that day waiting for a phone call back with a minute's time. She packed her bag and did her best to sleep. I went into the hospital at 10 p.m. Again, because of COVID, the original plan that we had for my husband to accompany me was thrown out by necessity. He had to drop me and I had to go in all alone. It was one of the hardest things we've ever done. The next few days are a blur for me, as I had 3 surgeries in 4 days. The first was the initial transplant. The second was because the pancreas was squished and not happy about it. The third was to close everything up after they made sure they were actually done. Beyond these initial surgeries, I've had surprisingly few complications, for which I'm extremely grateful. I'm tolerating the drugs quite well, and there have been a very few hiccups along the way. I'm on significantly fewer meds since the transplants. I have not had any medication for diabetes. This would have been for about a week that she's talking about. She says, I view this as a small miracle. I was diagnosed at 10 years old. I don't have any memories at all of what being not diabetic is like. Thanks to your family, thanks to Alex, I have a chance to make some.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Paul. Taylor, do you have something you'd like to share?
Yes, I do. So my dad donated his liver, and it went to a very, very nice family man. And we would talk a bit about his daughter in the first few letters. She had just graduated college around the time that he got his transplant, and the transplant went well. He never had any issues. He just has, normal back issues, the things with age that happens. But in this last letter, he shared that his daughter has the same name as me. That, and apparently, if you know how they would say, like, you kind of pick up things, I guess, with transplants. I never gone through anything with organ donation before my dad. I never did too much research into it. It was kind of thrown on me. It was an unexpected death. So it was something that was kind of just thrown on me. So being able to hear that this man now has cravings for ice cream, just like my dad, when before he didn't like sweets or anything. And I thought that was crazy. But it was good to know. Like it warmed my heart.
Thank you. Yes, and it's like I think Paul had mentioned, you could share as much as you're comfortable with, and it could be something about your health history, or it could be something as, like your ice cream cravings. But no matter what it is that you share, I think it's important to know that your donor family is just going to hold on to every little morsel and of information that they get, because it's all something special to them.
Yeah, and Sam, I would also I've got a second one here the uniqueness of this one, and it's important also, I think, to realize that every recipient is not an island among themselves. There are people around them that are sharing their journey with them, and they may also want to express their gratitude. Please don't leave them out of that opportunity. In this one, the 17-year-old boy who received Alex's heart, his parents felt a desire to express their needs. And this is just really simple, but you can tell it was very heartfelt. So they write, our son already expressed what he feels. Now, his parents, we want to say, thank you for sending the letter telling us about your son. We can't imagine the pain that you were feeling doing that. Sorry for your loss. We only want to express our feelings of gratitude for the act of generosity that your son did. He gave us joy and happiness after years of sorrow and uncertainty. You are all in our daily prayers, and may God give you the peace and strength for continuing to live without him. Thanks again, and God bless your hearts.
Thank you. And then I think we just wanted to open it up to any questions from anyone here. If you have any questions specifically for our donor families, I'll go through correspondence and answer those types of questions after that. But if you have any questions for the DeFranks or for Taylor.
I have one if they don't mind asking. Were your loved ones, were they organ donors, or was this a decision that you all made?
It was a decision I made.
Okay.
This was in our case, this was a decision that Alex made on his own. I guess the best way is the way what he told his mom.
He said, I'm not going to need him anymore, so why not? And that was very much kind of the way he took life. And so that was very typical comment of his. And it was a choice he made when he got his driver's license.
Okay. Second question. Did you initiate the correspondence, or did the recipient?
The recipient did for me.
The recipient did for you, Taylor? Okay, thank you.
In our case, we wrote to all of the recipients first, and they all responded.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have a question in the chat, or can unmute yourself if you do, if you have a question or statement for the DeFrank or Hamilton family?
I'm going to ask the question of everyone. Is it common for the recipient and the donor to have a communal relationship after a donation?
In our case, we initially heard from all four of the recipients. After that, we only heard from one that wrote a second letter. We replied to the first one, and I mean, it's up to the people how they want it to continue or not. And we've been very comfortable with leaving it up to them.
And we kind of talked this through a little bit yesterday. If we were ever able to meet his heart recipient, I think we would love the opportunity to, but it's not a real burning desire to do so.
Yeah, I'm at the point where I just signed the direct contact papers. So I'll be getting direct communication with my father's liver recipient. And like I said, I've only got the one, and I was very lucky enough to have this man who wants to have a relationship with me. So it does just depend on that person and how they feel and what they would like to, and just try not to take it personally, I guess.
Yes, and
All right, thank you guys.
yeah, and just to add on to that, It's definitely, it's just different in every situation. There's some recipients who don't want to communicate with donor families. There's some donor families who don't want to communicate with recipients. Um, and so you just kind of have to have that perfect situation where both sides want to communicate with each other. And so with it just depends on where you're at in your life and your circumstances. So you don't always have both sides ready or wanting to do that at the same time. But when you do, I think it can be really special. And Taylor, I'm so happy for you that you guys are starting that process and that you're going to be able
Thank you.
to get started. And Paul and Rebecca, with the one that continued, did you meet a recipient or have phone communication? Did you start the direct contact?
No, there were just two letters
Okay.
from her, and we were replied to both of them. I think I know we did the last correspondence with any of them, so we opened the door for that to continue if they so chose. And I think the reason Paul mentioned the one we would really like to hear from would be the heart recipient. And that's really because he was a young man. He was so much like our son and within a couple of years of age and that kind of thing. We would be open to hear from any of them if they ever chose to reach out again. But it's been, well, our son's been gone 5 years now, so I would say it's not very likely that we will hear from them. But hearing from them just the once was very, very good.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for them?
I didn't see any questions in the chat box, but I do have two comments and said, the first one says, incredible letter. Thank you for sharing. And the second says, thank you and your family for helping to save someone else's lives. You are appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question or a
Yeah.
comment. So I manage the communication between donor families and recipients here. So my question is, every day I'm practically sitting at my desk crying because the letters are beautiful on both sides, and it's a rewarding job for me to do. I have a question on, sometimes things aren't going so well on the recipient side, and they're, I wouldn't say afraid to reach out, but they feel maybe a little uncomfortable reaching out. Um, are are you open and welcome to hearing anything, even if things aren't going so well for them? Trying to put it in the right.
I would say yes. I mean, we all know the realities of that. But being able to lift them up in prayer, to think of them as they're going through this. And this was reflected in some of the letters that we received, is going to the hospital, and there's a lot of unknowns for the recipient too. And so I would love to hear either way.
Okay.
Yeah, same. But also, I understand too. Yeah, if you don't feel comfortable or if they don't feel comfortable letting me know. But it's life. If they didn't want to tell me, they don't want to tell me. But being able to help them would be nice. Give them encouragement, like she said.
Thank you.
I think sometimes for donor families, it can be nice, and even if it was just just a small message, even if you're overwhelmed and don't know what to write, but you just send a couple sentences that you're, sorry for their loss, and you're thanking them for this gift and letting them know you're doing well. Um, I think that can mean so much to them. And, even if you think about it, then if you decide to use your name, do your first name, before that, they don't know even, the name of the recipient. What we share with them is the age, the gender, the organ, and the region of the US. So, a 55-year-old woman received the liver and was transplanted in the South. That's what's in the information that they get. So even if they got a letter and you signed your name, and now they know, okay, John received the left kidney. That's something they didn't know, and it makes it more real and tangible and personal. And they think about that person out there, named John, who has their family members um, kidney. So where before that they didn't. So even just that can be something that they just carry with them and is special to them. So I will go ahead and go over just correspondence guidance, what's allowed and what's not allowed, and that this is specific for our OPO for LifeQuest. So every OPO covers a different region. So we're in the North Central Florida. There's 4 in Florida. It's the way it's broken up. So we're basically kind of Ocala everywhere north of that. Um, so what that means is if somebody in that area is at a hospital and passes away and becomes a donor, then that's one of our donor families. They could be vacationing in Florida from Minnesota, but this if they wherever they pass away, whatever service area, that OPO in that area is the one that serves that family. Um, so some of you, if you receive a transplant, it could be, the donors in this area, but they could have just been down here vacationing, like I said. Or some of you may receive an organ from another OPO's area. You might have a match with someone in Tennessee, or anywhere. So it won't necessarily be our OPO. But so they're all a little bit different. So for us, the correspondence initially is anonymous. The first name is okay, but anonymous in that there's no personally identifying information. Not your last name, not your contact information, just nothing that you can identify. Some OPOs don't redact any information. They keep it as is and they pass along whatever is written. So they're all different. We are under a hospital. Not all OPOs are actually connected to a hospital. So I suspect that's why ours is a little stricter with that because of HIPAA. Um, so ours, we do redact that. We scan in a copy of the original, but we just have to black it out. And the way we do it is it's just that anonymous at first until the possibility of direct contact is established. So you can share, like we talked about, as little or as much information as you like. You can tell about your health background and what got you to this point. Someone was sharing they'd been, one of the recipients had been diabetic since they were 10, or whatever it is. You don't have to share your personal information like that. You might share about your family, that you have a husband and 2 kids and a dog and a cat, what you do for work, what your hobbies are. Um, you you can share whatever it is that you want to share with the family. And we tell donor families the exact same thing, that they can use the donor's first name, and they can sign their first names, just not the last names, and they can tell their recipients as much as they want to share about their loved one. And it's just really personal. It's just whatever feels right for you. Um, and we don't have any guidelines with who can write first. Either side can write first. There's some recipients who are, they're feeling well enough in the hospital that they have a note card and a pen and they're writing something before they're even discharged. But of course, I've also received correspondence. I think I received one last year that was 12 years later from a recipient, and they hadn't written. And I got a hold of the donor family, luckily, because, phone numbers can change and people's contact information changes. And they were just completely shocked and blown away that they were getting correspondence from a recipient after 12 years. And they were so excited. It's never too late. Um, so that's just one thing I wanted to mention, that you don't have to wait to receive something from your donor family first. The donor family doesn't have to wait to receive something from the recipient first. Whenever you feel ready to write, you can. That being said, that's our policy, and we pass along the correspondence once we receive it. Some transplant centers are all different. So people who are transplanted somewhere else, their transplant center might have different policies. And so yours, of course, your part of Mayo, it would be whatever their policies are. Some of them hold on to correspondence for a certain period of time. Some of it do it right away. So you would, of course, want to talk to transplant coordinators and whoever handles that there, Patty, about what they do specifically. So I can't speak to that, but for us, if we get something from the recipient, we're getting it processed and sending it to the donor family. If we get something from the donor family, same thing, we're getting it processed and sending it on to that transplant center. But that's just us. Like I said, everything's different with other agencies. So that's kind of the timeline of when you can write, what you can write. Does anyone have any questions about that part of it?
I want to ask Patty while we're on this subject, so I don't forget. Patty, what is your turnaround time when you receive letters? I know we get emails from you stating you received a letter. You don't hold those any time frame, do you?
No, we don't hold it. We used to hold them for a little bit, but we don't hold them anymore. So my turnaround time, if I get a letter from a donor family, then I reach out to the social worker and they inform the patient, the recipient, that there's a letter here. And as soon as we hear that the recipient wants to receive the letter, I mean, I could get it out that same day or the next day, depending on, what my workload looks like. But as soon as we hear back that the recipient would like to receive the letter, it's a quick turnaround. It's a quick
Thank you, Patty.
turnaround time for them. And one thing I would like to mention while I'm here, so I get the letters, what would really be great, and it is to be careful because, as Samantha said, we do have to redact any identifying information. So just be careful of that when you write letters. And actually, I know Samantha said they let the ages go through. We don't. We don't give ages. We don't we would redact if you wrote you had your transplant at Mayo Clinic. We we just are pretty strict and try to keep the identifying information, none if we can. So be careful when you're writing because we know you want to share all of that, but anything that could identify where you live, where you had your transplant, your last names, your social media identification, that's going to get redacted. And it's really helpful if when you're writing your letter, if it's more than one page, to put it on a separate page. Try not to write front and back because if things need to be redacted, it kind of can be a little messy.
That's true. Yeah. Sometimes if you have to use like a Sharpie through, then it bleeds through to the
Right.
other side of the page. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
sometimes then the copy doesn't turn out quite as nice. Thank you for mentioning that about the transplant center. I did forget that. Of
Yeah.
course, if we have recipient who mentions where they were transplanted, then we do redact that because that's really narrowing it down to a geographical area versus the
Mm-hmm.
South, which could be several states.
Sure. Right.
And the same thing with the donor families that they mention, the city and state, we take that
Right.
out.
And we
Um,
can send you can send
mhm.
pictures. Um, it's just helpful. Don't write first and last names on the back of the pictures. You can write first names, but we can send pictures if they want to include that in their letter.
Yes. And the one thing that sometimes I've seen redacted, but we leave in there is if you say I received my transplant on whatever date, we don't redact that because the donor family knows when their loved one became a donor. You know, they
Right.
know exactly
And
within a day or two, so we don't
and
redact
I
that.
do redact that because I'm supposed to redact that. I feel the
Gotcha.
same way. I'm like, well, the donor family would know, but
They know when that happened. Yeah.
I know. I feel bad doing it, but I have to do it on our
Yeah.
end. Okay.
And just things like, you're not mentioning like the name of your employer where they could Google it, but you might say that you're a teacher, but you're not saying, the district in the school where they can, where Google is very powerful and we can find a lot on there. So if there's something that you typed it in there and you think you could be found, then we don't want to share that. And for us, it's just for, the privacy and safety of everyone. Because at first when you're writing, it is it's anonymous, because you're just kind of dipping your toe into this and figuring things out, but when it moves farther along and if both sides want to establish direct contact, there's just a lot to think about, to make sure that you're ready, because it's not something you can undo, once you've, I mean, I guess you could block someone, but once you've opened that door, it's open. So we always just want both sides to think about the impact. So we just take it slow. And that's just to make sure it's protecting everyone. Um, Let me
I have
see,
a
there are
question in the,
chat.
yeah, in the
Yeah,
chat. Yeah.
let me see.
I have someone said, I am a recipient with an underperforming kidney and I'm still struggling with contacting the donor family. Any advice for them, Samantha, or
Just
words of
so
encouragement?
I'm taking it that you might, there's a possibility that you could be on the transplant list again and need another transplant. Um, I would say, that does happen. I mean, with kidneys, obviously that does happen. And I know it can be kind of complicated, but even if you did end up needing another kidney from another donor in the future, that first kidney from that donor, that saved your life then, and it sustained your life a little longer until you got the next one. So I think that the donor families, and they can obviously speak to this. I think they would still be happy to hear, even if, it's, you know, y- it's not as healthy and perfect as hoped. I think they'd still like to hear from you because it did sustain you longer until you got the next one that lasts longer. But maybe the DeFranks and Taylor could speak about that.
I would
How would you
say,
feel?
yeah, I would say right off the bat, that you're right. If you look at organ donation, it just because of the very nature of it, um, it's not very personable. Uh, Getting letters from each other is a way of personalizing your loss and personalizing the gratitude for what you've received. As a father of an organ donor, I think I would still like to hear from them, even if it does go bad.
I would like to hear from them too, even if it went bad, but I have no expectations for the other person. Like he said, it's your right to choose how you communicate with the donor family. But in the end, and it does depend on each family and person. So, but I feel like it would be nice to know if it was going badly for you, and then we could, you know, again give you encouragement, make you try to make you feel better, or let you know that we're here for you.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you
I
both.
hope that answered your question, and anyone else who might be thinking that as well.
All right, the next is simply a statement saying, my husband is a living kidney donor. He appreciated a phone call from the recipient 4 months later. Um, After that, we have how different are protocols if the recipient has a living donor? So if they received a living donor transplant, do you all handle those, Samantha, or no?
No, so I can't speak to that. As far as a living donor, they would be the ones signing their own consent forms for if they want to communicate and if they want to share information. Um, but that's not something that we handle. Ours is only, deceased organ donors. Living donor program is um, something completely different, and it might be something that on the hospital side that they could tell you more about because I don't think that OPOs handle that at all. I think that's kind of just more through a transplant center.
When I
I
get
will
them,
say,
Lakaya,
I know I give them to the living donor
hmm
nurse coordinator. So I do not know the exact protocol, but I have been provided letters from recipients who received a living donor, and I do pass those along to the nurse coordinator. And she moves forward and handles those if the
Yeah,
donor
that
is open
might.
to correspondence.
Yeah, and that might be kind of hospital to hospital,
Yes.
transplant center to, where the person, it, sometimes it might be at the same place, but an OPO is kind of not part of that. It's just the hospital of each patient uh, would go between. But Patty, were you going to say something?
no, I was going to say the same thing to Lakaya. I do get living donor letters, um, but I can't get that information because I'm working like you are in the same system. So I do give them to the social worker to hand to the coordinator, and then they do their own process with the letters.
Did anyone else have any other questions about that?
I didn't, that was it from the chat box, Samantha.
Okay. Um, so gone through kind of what's allowed and what's not. And I did want to reiterate what something Paul had said, is that you're not limited to just you writing. We've definitely gotten letters from the recipient writes, but then also, close loved ones. So if it's a parent of, an adult, a young adult donor like Alex was, where multiple family members might write, but a recipient who may also be a young adult, like their recipient was, that recipient wrote, but then also their parent wrote. And I do get that quite often. And I think it can be kind of special parent to parent to have that communication with each other. We've had, I remember one where it was, I think the recipient was kind of like the grandfather and had quite the lineage, children and grandchildren, and his adult children wrote, and I think even a couple of his grandchildren wrote, and you have little kids, their handwriting and little pictures. So we had quite a few pieces of mail that came in that envelope from the recipient's family. We've had the recipient's spouse who's also written, just to say what a change it's been for their recipient. So if you have a family member, loved one that that is interested in writing, of course, you're the one who can decide if you want to allow that to go in the mail to us as well. But there will certainly accept that and pass it along if that's something that you feel you'd like to have them do. And then I'll just mention a little bit about direct contact. So the correspondence, is kind of the first part. And for us, our policy is that each side has to write to each other 2 times, and that about a year has to go by. Our year is, recipients are healing, recovering from surgery. Donor families are really in their grief. So that year you're writing to each other and kind of just sharing some information. If you've both written to each other 2 times and about a year has gone by, and you express either in the letter or to your coordinator that you're interested in pursuing direct contact, then we move forward with that. Um, often that's just, we see that right there in the letters. We see that somebody will write, I would love to talk to you one day. I would love to meet you one day. So then we know that that donor family or that recipient is interested. So once just that criteria is met, 2 letters each, about a year, then we move forward with the direct contact. And what that entails is we talk to the transplant coordinator just to get their input on if they support direct contact, just how the patient's doing, and we've always had them say yes, they support it. We submit it to our leadership. It's always just kind of a unanimous decision. Um, just that if they support it or not. And then we send consent forms to each side. So we send our donor family consent forms to sign. We send the transplant center the consent forms to sign. And once we get those back, then we can share the information. Our policy at our OPO is that we give the recipient information to the donor family, and we allow the donor family to decide when they're ready to reach out. Um, so they have it, and we kind of put the ball in their court, but that's just ours. Um, and also on that consent form, there's a place for all the information, your address, phone number, email address. You don't have to fill out everything. You can share what you're comfortable sharing. It might just be your email address, and that's where you want to start. And it might be your phone number. So whatever it is that you want to share for the contact. Um, that is okay for you to share, as long as they can get in touch with you. And after that, our part is kind of over. We are there for our donor families if they'd like us to be involved, if they want us to be present for the meeting. Because sometimes people meet face to face, but a lot of times people call or text or FaceTime or Zoom, at first, until they feel comfortable, because this is still a stranger that you're talking to. Um, then people might decide, after they've communicated phone and text, that they're ready to meet face to face. But you could be in Florida and the other person, um, in other situations, like the donor family could be here and their recipient could be in another state. So transportation can be an issue. Um, so we allow our donor families to know you can do, whatever we're not part of the equation anymore. You can um, move forward however you want, but we're there to support you if you did want us there. And I think there was a chat message. Let me see. OPO, sorry about that. Jessica answered, Organ Procurement Organization. So that is that when someone becomes an organ donor, when they're in the hospital, and uh, someone from the OPO is, approaching the family to obtain consent, if that's something, if they weren't registered, and the family's deciding, and then another department in the OPO is coordinating the whole transplant, with running the match for who the recipients are, coordinating the OR and the surgeons and all of that. And then I work with donor families after the fact for the bereavement and aftercare support. So the OPO is everything on the side of just with the donor family. Um, okay, so that's kind of how the direct contact process works. And Taylor, I know, is there in the process. She's signed everything. So
Yep, just sent it in the mail today.
awesome. So you're waiting to get the recipient's information then.
Yeah, I live across the country from Florida, so it'll take a few days for Pamela to get my paperwork, but
Gotcha.
it's coming.
Yeah. And so, how are you feeling about that? Once you get the recipient's information, Pamela gives it to you. Um, what are you thinking? Are you going to call or text or?
I would love to just outright call him, but I know sometimes calling isn't the best situation. I don't know what he's going to be doing, if he's going to be at work, or what the best time is. So I'll probably text him, let him know it's me, and that we can speak whenever he's available.
Oh, I'm excited for you. I'm sure you're excited and nervous and just a bundle of feelings, but
Mhm.
definitely hoping that it's a good experience for both of you, and that
Thank
it's,
you.
healing, and that all goes well. So looking at the time here, I know we're getting to the end. Does anyone have any other questions? And If not, or once we answer those, Jessica is going to just talk a little bit about volunteering. So, were there any questions for me or for anyone? If you think of anything later, you can always reach out to us. Patty and Lakea have mine and Jessica's contact information, but you can always email or call me if you had something that you wanted to ask individually. Happy to help. So no other questions. Jessica, do you want to share a little bit about volunteering and what you do?
Yeah, thank you. You guys had wonderful questions. So I work alongside Samantha at LifeQuest at the OPO, except I'm a little different. So I am the public education outreach coordinator. So what I do is I am in Jacksonville and I go all over the area trying to educate the community about organ donation. So I work with donor families, I work with recipients, and we come together to really educate our community. So many people in this area really don't know anything about organ donation. If it was not on Grey's Anatomy, then they are at a loss of words for it or completely incorrect. So I want to spread the correct information through our area. What's really, really interesting is that Duval County, out of all of the counties in Florida, has the 5th lowest number of people who say yes to organ donation when they get their driver's license or their permit, renew their license. So if you live in Duval, you're more likely to say no to organ donation than all the other counties. The only ones we beat out is like Miami and Tampa, Orlando. If you see the trend, it's the big cities that tend to register less. What's crazy is that the number one, the people who say yes the most in Florida is Nassau County, and number 3 is St. John's. We are literally smack dab in the middle of 2 counties that are so for organ donation, and Duval just really isn't, which I find to be so fascinating. Obviously, Duval County is way more diverse in every sense of the word. There's so many moving pieces, so it's such a large area, so that plays into all of it. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Let's see. And kind of show you what we do if you guys do have any interest in being a volunteer and kind of spreading your story, what organ donation is, with the people in our area. So we go to all sorts of different events, either tabling or providing education through presentations to different people. Today, I was at a high school driver's ed talking to some brand new drivers about donation, but it is so different every day. So sometimes it's high school or college students, other times it's in churches or just different health fairs, basically just trying to get this real information about donation out there. And your stories make a much bigger impact than me just rattling off a bunch of statistics. I could say, there's 100,000 people waiting for a transplant and how many people are needed just in this community, this area. But you guys sharing your story of, I'm so grateful to be here, or the gift that my loved one was able to give, makes a huge difference in opening people's eyes to the value that organ donation really has. So I just wanted to provide just a couple photos and let you guys know that if you are ever interested in volunteering, we would absolutely love for you to be a part of our little volunteer family and really educate our community and show the impact that organ donation has, not just here, but in our world as a whole. So if you guys are interested, I'll put my email and my phone number in the chat, and you guys are more than welcome to message me, because I would love to know more about you and figure out ways that we can reach more people here. Jacksonville is a good area, but we need to get this information out to them. So any questions for me at all?
I might add a comment here. Rebecca and I have been ambassadors for LifeQuest since this happened. And we have found it to be very rewarding. We've had some time that we spent here on public broadcasting talking about it. And we've attended events, and we have found it very rewarding work.
We appreciate you so much. Just all the times you've come to events and you've spoken and you've come to these Zoom sessions and shared your story and shared about Alex. And we really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, I can't do what I do without people like you guys. And so just so grateful. Even if, you DeFranks don't live in Jacksonville, but I still love to get to see you guys.
I think that's everything for us.
All right. Any questions, comments? Let me see if there was anything. Nope, I don't see anything else. Right. Well, I want to give a huge thank you to the DeFranks and Taylor for sharing about your loved ones and your experience. It is really appreciated. Also to Jessica and Samantha, thank you so much for presenting to our group today. You were a wealth of information, and a huge shout out to Patty. Thank you so much for coming in today and answering some questions, because you are our point person here for handling those letters. So thank you. And thank you to all for attending today. We had a great turnout and I really appreciate it. Please look for invite for next month and do not hesitate to reach out if you need us. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye. We'll see you next month. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to let us come in and chat. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Jess. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy this since I first reached out to Pamela. So it's been wonderful being able to meet the rest of the team, and this has been so much knowledge, and it's good information, because when I'm meeting with patients post-transplant, like, these are things I can share when I'm encouraging them to write the family and telling them about the letters in LifeQuest. So this is great, so I can pass that information along for those who didn't attend.
Good. And Pamela is retiring. Did you hear that?
No. When?
Yes.
Very
soon. Yeah, the end of August. So you're looking at the next two people you need to